Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bella Gamer, and today we're going to be talking about the Barbarossa, the siege mech in the game, and honestly, one of my, I would say, favorites, but it's like not in my top 10. I just really like this mech's design and its overall function, and it's a behemoth of a mech. It is actually the only at this moment core base size 3 mech that you can find in any of the core books anyway. So it is massive. It is the size of a small apartment building. It's really big. And it's an artillery frame, and this is like the premier artillery mech. All right, so you can see here that, standard structure stress, but has 2 armor. 2 armor is a lot of armor, actually. Most mechs only have, at most, like 1. 2 is pretty big. That's for a pretty good reason, though. And unlike a lot of other mechs that have armor, it also has 10 HP, which is massive. But it's slow and clunky. It has an evasion of 6 and defense or an E defense of 6, meaning that it's just really easy to get to get into hack, especially. So this mech is one that definitely is designed to be in the back line, and it's so tall it can be hit over most like standard obstacles. So it's something to keep in mind. But the 2 armor and the tons of HP is meant to keep it more or less kicking. Not only that, this mech has a higher than standard heat capacity, which makes a lot of sense considering the number of heat systems it can use. And as well, it has a decent sensor range and a pitiful -2 to its tech attack. So you're not going to use tech attack or tech actions with this mech. It's just not what it's designed for. Now, as a low end of average for its repair capacity, its save target is average, and its speed is really slow. This mech is designed pretty much only for ranged weaponry, and that's about it. It also has less than average system points, the average being around 7. This has having 2 points less, which is pretty abysmal, if I'm going to say. And let me just move my camera here real quick so we can look at its traits here. So, my mic has drifted into the scene. So, it has the heavy frame, which is a really solid system. Other mechs, if they want this same thing, they have to take a core bonus from IPS North Star. I think it's the Formarian frame. And essentially, it can't be pushed, pulled, knocked prone, or knocked back by smaller characters. Now, I was under a big misconception about this. I was like, oh, so this is meant for like grappling, and like, no, actually, that's not what it's designed for. Literally anything, like the Black Witch, whose whole thing is moving characters. This particular mech can just ignore a lot of the Black Witch's effects, which is actually really cool. That means also a lot of the weapons that do knockback or the like just don't affect it unless it's coming from another size 3 mech, which is massive to say the least. It's designed to be unmoving wherever it's stationed, which is pretty good. Now, its pressure plating is really good because it reduces explosive damage. And this mech is going to be using a lot of explosive guns. So, in the rare chance that you might be in your own blast radius, not bad. It also makes it really good against other artillery mechs using cannons or the like that also typically use explosive damage. So it's really good anti-artillery as well as being a really good artillery. It's designed to be a mobile fortress, more or less. It's a colossus, so any characters who are adjacent to it can use it for hard cover, which is nuts. It's really good. It allows your squishier ranged allies to get behind you. You can be a ranged tank if you're going against a heavy artillery line. Though because of the way the Barbarossa kind of like positions itself, it's not going to probably get a lot of use out Colossus, but it's still a really cool effect. And slow. it has a +1 difficulty on agility checks and saves, which makes a lot of sense. So, looking at the weapon mounts here, I'm a bit sad. So it has a heavy mount and then two main mounts. That's it. Main mounts are kind of garbage in my opinion. I wish they were main aux or flex mounts or something. Mostly because I just want the Barbarossa, since it's so slow, so easy to hit, to just be a giant gunboat, you know? I want to equip a ton of weapons on it. And it can, I guess, it can have one heavy and two main mounts, which, don't get me wrong, is a fair amount of firing power, but a main aux mount or something would just give it a bit more, which I think would be better. I don't know. It's still good and obviously prime for using super heavy weapons, depending. And now we're going to look at the Apocalypse Rail. So the Apocalypse Rail is a massive ability here. And it's kind of silly because what they state here. So essentially, when you activate the system, your Apocalypse Rail Cannon begins charging up, essentially. The thing I find silly is they're like, you get an apocalypse die, which is a D6, but it ever only goes up to 4, and it goes between 4 and 1. So I don't know why they didn't say D4. I guess because maybe in the Core Lancer book they say the only dice you need are D6s and D20s. So I guess that makes sense, but a D4 works perfectly for this. I don't know. Very, very silly. So anyway, let's talk about what it does. So I was already looking. Spoilers. So at charge 4 it does nothing. You need to charge it for another round in order to utilize. At charge 3, or I guess Apocalypse 3, interesting. I think they should have done this in backwards order. I think it should have been charge 1 to charge 4 to represent max charge. I don't know. Anyway, this has a 20 range and a blast 2, and it does 2d6 explosive damage. And not only that, anything in the blast area, any objects in the blast area take 20 armor piercing damage. That's a lot of damage that can annihilate a lot of fortifications, small buildings, and the like. And then after the attack, there's a lingering dust cloud, which I love, that pretty much provides any characters that were hit by it with soft cover. So the soft cover in this case is not a good thing. It's more designed for your enemies, and obviously at this level, it only provides them a benefit. Now, all this text right here in the equipment effect just tells you how the Apocalypse Rail works. I should also mention this is a full action fire, and you can't move or do anything when you fire it. So your turn is to blast the enemy, very much like in Armor Core 6 when Rusty shoots the ice worm.
Okay, 90, 95. I won't miss.
All right, so next up, we're going to go to Charge Rail 2. And this extends the range by 5 hexes, and it does 3d6 blast damage. But the big things is our objects take 40 AP explosive damage, doing pretty much destroying most buildings. And any characters that were hit become shredded and impaired until the end of their next turn. And the blast cloud that creates cover before now is a burning cloud, which still provides cover, but also deals 4 burn damage to characters that start their turn in the area and or move into the area for the first time in their turn. So, that being the case, this at rail 2 charge 2, whatever, it does actually 3d6 plus 4 burn, which is massive. That's a lot because characters obviously who are hit by it are going to start their turn in the blast area. So, yeah, it's a really hard-hitting cannon. And now we're going to look at the full charge, and this is 4d6 explosive damage. It has a range of 30, extending the range by 5 hexes. Again, still the 2 blast. Now, this does 100 armor-piercing damage to objects in the area. This leaves nothing but a crater. Similar enemies become shredded and now stunned rather than impaired until the end of their next turn. And that sucks for them because the ground in the area, the dust becomes vaporized and it still does the 4 burn. So unless they find some way of getting out of the blast, they could take that 4 burn potentially twice, which is nuts. It's a really good gun, and actually a really cool thing is you can see up here at the top as well. If you reach the end of the scene and you haven't fired it, you actually get the CP back. So popping this, which is I think it's a quick action, yeah. So popping this as a quick action when you have no other quick actions is potentially not a bad idea. Keeping it on hand so if it ever needs to be used, you can do so. But if it's not called for in your combat, then at the very least, you can save it for another battle. So the Barbarossa is so cool. It's such a big ass mech, and I thoroughly enjoy the idea behind it. But the license is really cool, and honestly, if you want to play any artillery game style, you're probably gonna want to pick up some of the bits from the Barbarossa's license. So starting at rank 1, you get the roller directed payload charges. This is an interesting grenade because it's essentially a bowling ball grenade, but it's cool. It's got some bouncing effects. So the grenade does a massive 1d6 plus 3 damage, which is actually really good for a grenade, honestly. But you don't throw it. Instead, you roll it in a line 10 path directly in front of you. Now, the grenade can actually bounce and roll over objects up to size 1, which is pretty cool. And it can pass through holes or gaps no smaller than a size 1/2. Now, it detonates when it moves through or adjacent to a space occupied by any character. So you got to be careful. Make sure that line does not create adjacency to any of your allies when you use this ability. Now, the person hit takes the damage, but they must succeed an agility save or be knocked 3 spaces in the direction the grenade was rolled. Now, if they succeed the check, they do take half the damage. So there is a potential that this won't do a ton of damage. But what's really cool about it, and something that I thoroughly enjoy, is just the fact that you can knock an enemy back 3 spaces. That can keep a lot of range. And the Apocalypse Rail, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the Apocalypse Rail can't be fired at anything within 5 hex range of you, which is a pretty big dead zone for your mech. So having something like the roller grenade is really good. But like most grenades, this can also be turned into a mine, as the bounce mine is actually anti-air design. It's designed to prevent characters who come in less conventional means. You can see here that when you set it, it detonates when a flying character flies within 10 spaces over. It flies up and strikes the character. They must make a system save or take 2d6 explosive damage and immediately land. Additionally, they cannot fly until the end of their next turn. On a success, they take half damage and are otherwise unaffected. So this is a really, really good general effect. Very solid. It's something that you can use to defend yourself with, and the roller grenade. The whole premise of the grenade is mostly to defend yourself, as you're optimally trying to stay at a very far range. Line 10 is pretty massive, though, honestly speaking, but you want to use it to keep enemies away from you. So, yeah, it's limited to. And one thing that I would recommend is if you're going into the Barbarossa itself, I would recommend going into engineering, because the engineering not only is going to help with your heat capacity stuff, but it's also going to help with your limited systems. Also at rank 1, you get siege stabilizers. This is a very interesting one, and it works when you have a position that's easily defensible or the like. So what it essentially does is you, as a quick action, can retract or extend your stabilizers. When they're extended and you essentially become rooted in place, your range attacks gain +5 range, which is actually pretty big, but you become immobilized. You can't make melee attacks and can't make range attacks against characters who are within range 5. So you create a dead zone within the extended essentially range, and it says you can't have it centered on. So if you do have a blast weapon, technically you could center at that at your minimum range and hit characters who are a little bit closer to you than that. But other than that, yeah, I like this one. I think it's really good. I think it's a good way to get into a very bad situation, though, give or take. And it creates a dead zone, which is a little bit bad because if an enemy runs up on you, right? So if an enemy runs up on you, you'll need to use a quick action to retract your your stabilizers. Then you can hit them within range rather than like just blasting them as they're running up on you. But if you want range, if you want to extend your range, which is the only thing this does is extend your range, it's good in my opinion. Rather than like, so the Barbarossa is a really good example why this is super effective because the Barbarossa has a speed of 2. You have to invest in quite a bit of agility to get your Barbarossa up to even like 5 speed, right? You need to do 3 points in agility. And that being the case, rather than, spending one of your quick actions to boost, instead, you can just use your stabilizers to extend your range by five hexas, meaning that you can pretty much move up to range in a sense without actually moving up to range. So siege stabilizers is really good for big slow mechs like the Barbarossa. All right, at rank 2, along with the Barbarossa, we get the autoloader drone. And this is probably one of my favorite drones in the entire, like, of drones. I like drones a lot, but this one just is so good for what it does. So you get an autoloader drone, and this is a unique drone because this one actually comes with charges. So you could actually have multiples of these autoloader drones without expending additional system points. Though maybe most drones are unique. I don't know, actually. I haven't done the research. But what's really cool about this one is that once per round, move my head out of the way there. Once per round, one character adjacent to it may reload a loading weapon as a quick action rather than needing to use the stabilize action. It then deactivates at the end of the round or at the end of the scene. So, what's really cool about this is for the Barbarossa specifically, since we're talking about its license and its style of play, it just drops one of these guys and then just starts unloading with its loading weapons, quickly reloading it, and then getting ready to fire again immediately on the next round, pretty much. It's very solid. I really like this one, and I love that it comes with charges so that you can technically have multiples of these in case you need to move in a round. A very good style of drone, and it enhances the Barbarossa style and any artillery style, and it can work for any character. Granted, only one character per round, but still, even if you're not the Barbarossa, there's a lot of mechs that can really utilize this one, and it's only 2 system points, so it's a really good pickup. Flak launcher is really good. It's a very solid system, actually. I can see a lot of mechs using this one because there's nothing worse than flying mechs or flying enemies in general that are just hard for you to get to. Like if you're a melee mech, especially, this is a really good one. So you get the flak launcher, and essentially what it is, as a quick action, you choose a character within range 15 in line of sight. They must succeed an agility save or be immediately forced to land, falling without damage. And additionally, they become slowed and can't fly until the end of their next turn. This makes them really easy to pick off if you have your allies kind of close to the landing zone. It's really good. Honestly, like as an artillery mech, this is a really good action to assist your allies who are potentially out in the area, or if you're picking the Barbarossa license up for some of its other features, this is also just a good one to select, as it can be used in a lot of situations. And obviously you can load it up as you need it. So, I like the flak launcher. I think there's just a lot of situations where it comes in handy, at least when flying enemies are to be expected. All right, we're coming up to rank 3 in the license, and the only weapon in the Barbarossa's license, which is a little sad to me, but this is a really good one. Now, this is a super heavy cannon, so obviously this would take up 2 of your mech's mounts pretty typically, but it's pretty worth it. Now, it's a cannon that actually has 2 modes, and on attack, you can choose which mode you're using. So, in the siege mode, the weapon is range 3, has blast 2, and is 3d6 damage, but it also has the arcing and ordnance traits, and as well as a loading weapon, and does 4 heat to yourself when you use it. So this is a big gun. This is going to. I'm honestly surprised about the 4 heat. I mean, 3d6 explosive, I guess, is good damage, but 4 heat is a pretty expensive take just for this. Now, obviously, there are a lot of ways that you can get around the heat costs. And the Barbarossa has a high heat capacity, so it works for that. But the arcing is really good because arcing essentially you don't need line of sight. And because it's blast, all you need to do is just put the enemy in your blast. Like the arcing is just a net gain because you just the arcing only or cover is only considered from the center of a blast or any pattern you're using. So all you have to do is just position the center behind the enemy, and then the blast will hit them. So you essentially can hit enemies without needing line of sight. Now it is ordnance, so you can't take any other actions in the turn except for protocols. So this mode is pretty hefty, but it's really, really good. And it's loading, so obviously having your loader drone will be pretty necessary, and you're gonna need some method to mitigate the heat, or you're going to quickly stress out your mech. Now, if we go over to the direct fire mode, this has a much reduced range. It's only a range 20. Same damage though, and instead it has knockback 2 and heat 2 to yourself. So, knockback 2, this is really good for enemies that are running up on you, and heat 2 obviously is a lot more manageable and for the same damage. So, I like the direct fire mode more, but obviously it has less target viability because you need line of sight. So, that being the case, I do like it because it can help when an enemy is running up on you as long as your stabilizers aren't necessarily in the ground, and you can push enemies away from you to kind of help keep the distance. This is a really good cannon for siege mechs in general if you go down like cannon talent lines or the like. The siege cannon is just a very solid weapon pickup for the Barbarossa especially, but for most artillery mechs. All right, and the final system here in rank 3 for 3 massive system points is going to be the external ammo feed. A really good system, but one that is very taxing. 3 system points is a lot, but you get the ability of essentially the drone, which is once per round you can activate the system to reload a loading weapon. So this in tandem with the loading drone can actually allow you to use multiple loading weapons in a round potentially. Not in a round because you would have to. I guess if you overheat or overcharge your mech potentially, but you could fire 2 loading weapons and then you could spend your next round reloading both of them, which is really cool. Now, this does do 1d3 plus 1 heat to yourself. So a minimum of 2 heat, maximum 4 heat. It's a big heat increase, honestly. And it's after using this weapon or system. So anytime you use the reload. So I like external ammo feeds. I think it's something that's very potentially handy. But I will say that it is very taxing, not only on a system point level, but on a heat capacity level as well. And obviously, I think the loader drone works just better, but this is really good. I think it's really beneficial and it benefits your stuff as well. And that's going to be it for the Barbarossa. Now, I thoroughly enjoy the Barbarossa. If you're building into it, you're definitely going to want to build a lot of hull and engineering. No point in putting anything in agility. It's just designed to be a very slow, long range mech. You could go into systems, if anything, just to give yourself more system points. But I think your primary focuses probably should just be your engineering first and then your hull. And a lot of these features are really good. The Barbarossa has some really nice license features. I can definitely see a lot of people like going into the Barbarossa mostly for what you get through the license without even needing to get into the frame. And that's going to be it for this rotation. We've done the first mechs of each of the licenses. And I think this week I'm also going to be releasing another video for Lancer. So later this week, one of my favorite mechs, we're going to be doing the Drake for the video on Thursday. So if you want to see that, stay tuned. And speaking of, if you've enjoyed this content and you want to see more of it, like and subscribe so that you get notified whenever the video comes up, or at least are more likely to see it. Obviously, you can hit the bell if you want to get a notification, or you can join our Discord, linked in the description, where we talk all things tabletop there, and also people are finding groups and all kinds of fun stuff. And you're always notified whenever a new video comes out, or I go live, which I tend to do about twice a week. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.